Okay, well, our special guest this evening is Miss Laura Yeager. Please come. And folks, she has her own Wikipedia page, so I'm going to read directly off of it. Major General Laura Yeager is a retired officer of the United States Army National Guard. She became the commander of the National Guard's 40th Infantry on June 29th of 2019 and served in a role that role until May 15th of 2022. She is the first woman in the United States to command a United States Army Infantry Division. That's a big deal. Yeager grew up in Fountain Valley, California. Her father, Robert Brandt, is a retired Major Army General and a veteran of the Vietnam War. She attended Cal State Long Beach and UCI pretty much at the same time, where she joined the Reserve Training Officers Corps to help pay for her college education. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, Irvine, and 2 master's degrees, one in marriage and family therapy from Chapman University, and one in strategic studies from the United States Army War College. Her military career consists of, she was commissioned as a second lieutenant on May 30th, 1986, after which she completed the Army Medical Department Officer Basic Course. Her first appointment was a platoon leader with the 423rd Medical Company. She completed training as a military helicopter pilot in 1989. She then flew Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters as an aeromedical evacuation pilot. After 8 years, she left active duty as a captain when her first son was born. She joined the Army Reserves and later resumed her active military career in the California National Guard. Yeager was promoted to a major in December of 1998, lieutenant colonel in 2004, and colonel in 2011. After several staff appointments, she commanded the 3rd Battalion, 140th Aviation Regiment at Stockton, California, between 2006 and 2008. In 2010 and 11, she saw service in Iraq as the deputy commander of the Guard's 40th Combat Aviation Brigade based in Taji. In March 8th of 2016, she was promoted to Brigadier General. In 2017, she became Commander Joint Task Force. There's just a lot of stuff here.
There's a lot of jargon.
And part of the United States Northern Command at Fort Bliss, Texas, the first woman in that position. Yeager was promoted to Major General June 29th in 2019 and assumed command of the Guard's 40th Infantry Division, a force of more than 10,000 soldiers. She became the first woman to command a U.S. Army Infantry Division. The change of command ceremony was held at the Joint Force Training Base in Los Alamitos. She relinquished the command of the division of her deputy to Major General Michael Leaney on May 15th of 2022. Yeager's award and decorations include the Defense Superior Service Medal, Legion of Merit with 2 bronze oak leaf clusters, the Bronze Star Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal with 3 bronze oak leaf clusters, and various other achievement, campaign, and service medals. That's a lot. Welcome, Laura. So I have to start out with this. Who would have thought that 53 years later, we actually grew up in the same tract. We went to elementary school. We started at kindergarten together. And 53 years later, we're sitting across each other.
I know.
I mean, what you've done.
Same grade school, same high school, same college.
Yeah.
So.
And our paths cross later in life, but there's a lot of commonalities, and I'm just thrilled to be here with her tonight. And after serving 36 years in the military, I mean, what you've done is amazing and nothing short of incredible. So glad to have you here. So first and foremost, what attracted you to the military and why?
Yeah, I was here as a freshman, and Libby and I were talking about how affordable UCI was back then, back in the day. I think it was about $600 a quarter back then.
Including books.
Yeah. And that was still more than my parents could afford. So after my freshman year, they wanted me to transfer over to Cal State Long Beach, but I really wanted to stay here at UC Irvine. Loved the campus. So I was wandering around the campus one day, and I happened to see a flyer for the Reserve Officer Training Corps program. And what they would offer is, if you participated in that, a $100 a month stipend. And that basically was enough to cover the difference between the tuition here at UC Irvine versus Cal State Long Beach. So after my freshman year, which was really painful, I don't know about you guys, but going from high school to college was exponentially harder. So I had kind of a rough first year anyway, but I went to a 6-week camp at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and we road marched, we learned to fire weapons, did obstacle courses, all kinds of training maneuvers in the woods, and I just fell in love with it. It was unlike anything I had done before. I competed for a scholarship. I ended up getting a 2-year scholarship on top of the $100 a month stipend. But I just really enjoyed the people, the mission. It is a very diverse group of people in the military. They come from all over the country, every ethnicity, culture, religion, and you come together as a team. And that experience, I thought, yeah, this is what I was meant to do.
Break down what it was like for you during college.
Oh yeah, so yeah, Libby and I were talking about this, and I'm sure you guys are busy too. But back then, once I joined ROTC, I would come here to school all day, and then I would drive to Cal State Long Beach for my ROTC classes. I would change into my uniform in the car, and I would do my ROTC classes, and then I would get back in the car and change back into my clothes, drive back to my job. I was working at Target at the time, about 32 hours a week. I would work there until 10 o'clock at night or whenever you got done zoning. Do we have any Target people here? Yes. You never really know when you're going to get off if you're closing the store. So would do that and then go home and then do the same thing the next day. It was.
And then every summer you were doing various camps.
Yes. So the first summer I did the 6-week course at Fort Knox. The second summer I went to the airborne school, which is in Fort Benning, Georgia, where they teach you how to jump out of airplanes. That was a lot.
I bet.
So full disclosure, I am a terrible runner. Sorry, Kat, I'm not, you enjoy it, but I don't like running. The Army loves running. I don't like it. And you had to pass a test when you got there to the course or they would throw you out. You had to run the 2 miles in less than 15 minutes, 25 seconds.
Wow.
Which, for me, that was a lot because I'm slow. You can time me by a calendar, basically. That's how fast I am. And I think it was 40 push-ups in 2 minutes and 60-something sit-ups in 2 minutes. So anyway, but I passed.
Good for you.
Yes, yeah, and there was a lot of running in that course.
I bet. Yeah. So after you graduated from UCI, where did you go from there?
Yeah, once I graduated, I was commissioned. I went and did a few months training in San Antonio, Texas, and then I went to Fort Lewis, Washington. I was there and it was so awesome too. I was talking to my sister about this, that we were both really busy in college doing multiple things, and then when I got in the Army, I only had to do one thing. I only had one job. It was awesome, Yeah, so I was a platoon leader up there at Fort Lewis, and then my dream, though, was to fly helicopters. So I applied for flight school and was accepted. I left Fort Lewis after about a year and went to Fort Rucker and learned how to fly helicopters. And that was awesome, too.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in time, do you feel like you were going to make a career out of this, or you were just kind of going along for the ride?
I just was having fun, and I thought, I'm going to do this as long as I still love it. And honestly, up till I retired, I still loved it. After 36 years, it went by so fast.
Well, in the military, what opportunities did you have? Do you felt like you were treated fairly? What is military service like for you, and what do you have to say about it?
So I'm really proud of the military because I'm not sure in the civilian world what the disparity is these days. I think it's something like females make 80 cents to the dollar for the male, something like that. In the Army, I made exactly the same amount of money that the male of the same rank as me made.
As it should be.
Right, as it should be. And it's all very much based on your performance. And honestly, they tell you exactly what they need you to do. There's tasks, conditions, and standards. And you are a superstar if all you do is follow those simple standards. And if you do a little bit more, then you're extra superstar. So there's no mystery to it. And it's a meritocracy, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's so many opportunities. I've been able to travel around the world. I've been to Japan twice. I've been to Poland, Iraq.
What was that like?
That was the most fulfilling year of my career professionally, but it was really challenging for my family at home. They were worried about me, and it was maybe, I don't know, not quite a year after I got home that my son, who was about 16 at that time when I was in Iraq, he told me it was the worst year of his life. And
oh boy.
Just, it still
That's
kind of
tough.
gets me. Yeah, it
That's
still kind of
tough.
gets me, but I was having a ball.
You were doing medevac? Or?
I was flying medevac missions over there. Mainly when you're an officer in the Army and you're a pilot, your main role is to do the administrative operational jobs, and then you're a pilot on sort of part-time. We have what's called warrant officers in the Army who that's their main job. Is they pretty much just fly. And if I had really thought it through, I probably should have been a warrant officer instead because you just get to go fly all the time. So it's not a lot of paperwork and dealing with personnel issues and stuff.
Well, you mentioned the work-life balance.
Yeah.
And how hard that is, and I can relate to that. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, managing.
Because you took time off.
Yes.
And then you went back, and you said to me that actually probably put you on the career path to becoming what you were versus had you just stuck it out
right.
and not done that.
Yes, I met my husband while I was at flight school, so he was in the Army before I got in the Army. And when I met him, he already had 3 boys. And he was the full-time father for 2 out of 3 of those. They're the middle sons, and they were like 3 and 4 years old at the time. And we were managing, taking care of the kids, plus 2 very demanding full-time jobs. I was telling Libby at one time, so the Army does do some things that make you go, At one point, they assigned us, they said it was a joint assignment, but they assigned me to a place called Fort Hood in Texas, and my husband to a place in San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston. Those places are about 3 hours apart. So not ideal at all. And we just were trying to juggle these 2 careers, and it was just really not sustainable. So when I was pregnant with our youngest, Scott, the Army offered a separation bonus for people in my year group to get out of the military. So I got out and I got into the reserve components instead. And I'm a huge advocate for having a parent home. I think it's just, the quality of life is so much better. Mm-hmm. And, it just made sense in our family because my husband was more senior for me to step aside. Mm-hmm. But it was also awesome to get in the reserve components because staying home and taking care of a child is a blessing and a gift to be able to do that. But you also need some other things in your life. And
outlets.
You need some outlets, yeah. And being able to go do things with adult people 1 week in a month and a couple weeks in summer was really awesome. So.
How'd you graduate getting back into the military after you were at home?
Yes, I never really got out fully. I was always, when I went from full-time to part-time, I was always in. And it was great. It was perfect. And had I not stepped away, I don't think I would have ended up where I ended up, because the compromises that my husband and I were having to make about who was going to get which job and where we were going to be, I was never going to get the jobs I needed to get to advance further in the organization. So it turned out to be, perfect.
Are any of your children in the military?
Yes, yeah. So
is that a dumb question?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. There are not that many people, unfortunately, interested in joining the military. And surprisingly, only 23% of Americans between the ages of 18 and I think 30, only 23% can even meet the eligibility standards to get in the military.
That's not good.
And of those 23%, a lot are just not interested because they don't, I think, understand what it would be like. What tends to happen is it becomes a family business, basically, because if you're the child of somebody in the military, you're comfortable with it, you understand the benefits, you understand the challenges and all that. So actually, my youngest, Scott, is a second lieutenant in the National Guard here in California. And I'm so proud of him. So he just got commissioned recently as a second lieutenant. He went from a junior enlisted to a lieutenant because he got his master's in social work. So he is part-time in the National Guard, and he has a full-time job doing basically facilitating training using a game. But once he gets licensed as a social worker, he's going to get a $10,000 a year bonus.
Good for him.
Yeah, for a part-time job.
That's wonderful.
So the Army has some really, if you know anybody in biological sciences that intends to go to medical school or really anything, occupational health, physical therapy, social work, the Army has some amazing programs where they will pay off your student loans. The Army actually has its own medical school in Bethesda, Maryland, and if you get accepted to that school, you will get commissioned to be a second lieutenant, so you get paid while you go to medical school. I mean, yeah, it's a really good deal. So if y'all know anybody that's interested, they should look that up, because medical school, I hear, is expensive.
I've heard the same thing.
Yes.
Now, you had mentioned your time at UCI. You really, when you look back at it, it taught you critical thinking.
Yes.
Explain that.
Yeah, I feel like the faculty here, I'm sure they're still pretty demanding, right? They have high expectations. And they, even back then, really challenged you to support your arguments. You could argue anything you wanted if you could support it. And the only math class that I ever really understood and liked was statistics.
I love that. Was one of my favorite classes.
I know. I saw the purpose of it. This doesn't not make any sense to me at all. I was a psychology major. They made me take calculus. I don't even understand why. It is a miracle that I passed that class. I had no idea what it was for. But statistics taught me to look at research and understand the relevance of it. Well, is this a good correlation or not? And the statistics, I think, really helped me. So I'm very much, into critical thinking. I like to look at things from all angles, get my information from as many sources as possible. And I think the academic rigor here at UCI taught me to do that. And that's been huge in my life.
Well, you obviously were a leader of many, many capacities. What do you think it takes to be a leader?
The most important thing is taking care of your people. that, you know, any success that I've had in my career is 100% attributable to the people that worked for me.
You were saying the other day where you broke it down when you said to one fellow that was driving the trucks that he's part of
Yes.
the big chain of events. Explain that.
Yes. It only occurred to me maybe 5 years ago that when I really thought about it, the most motivating thing for me and for the people that work for me is having a sense of purpose. And how do I fit in, and how does what I do matter? Does it matter if I show up? And if you can explain that to the people that work for you, if you can help them understand how important what they do really is to the overall success, it's incredibly motivating. I mean, I think more motivating than money in some ways. It's huge. And sometimes as leaders, we fail to articulate to our folks how what they do matters. So we have a lot of truck drivers in the Army, and for that young soldier driving the truck, they may not understand how critical what they do is. But if they don't get the ammunition, the fuel, the food to the units that need it, that unit will fail. And if you've been watching the news about what's going on in Ukraine, the Russians are terrible, you know, at the logistics. And their soldiers, I don't think, from what I can tell, have really been told how what they do matters. They don't care, you know, and
there's not a lot of continuity there.
There's not a lot of continuity there, and our soldiers do. You know, our soldiers really do understand, and they care. But you have to remind them, and you have to thank them, and yeah, that sense of purpose is so important.
You touched on Ukraine, and when we chatted earlier, talk about the National Guard and the 30 years that they've been training Ukrainians. I never knew that. You just told me that the other day. I found that very interesting.
Yeah, back when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was some concern about the countries that were under the Soviet Union. How would they fare? Which way would they go? Would they move towards democracy, which what we hoped they would do, or would they just, you know, kind of fall apart? Especially concerned about their militaries and what would happen with them. So this program was developed. It was called Partnership for Peace, and the California National Guard was paired up with Ukraine back, 30 years ago. And ever since then, the National Guard in California has been going to Ukraine, training with them, teaching them about things like logistics, the importance of leadership, and sometimes they'll come to the United States and do things with us. It's a partnership. It's you know, we learn things from them too.
Sure.
Yeah. So whenever the Russians invaded Ukraine about a year ago, the first people that the Ukrainian army and the leadership called were members of the California National Guard. And
not the White House.
Not the White House. Not the White House, because over so many years there was a level of trust and relationships built that you can't buy that. No. You have to earn that. And so it was a really, obviously we're very concerned and sad, you know, that this is going on right now. But over those many years, in those exchanges we did, they learned a lot, and they're putting that learning to use right now. And you know, hopefully we help make a difference for them.
Well, I hope so too.
Yeah.
What would you say, what were some of your takeaways from UCI and everything that you've done that were your keys to success, to what you got here? I'm sure there were a lot of variables, and you had quite a path, which, I mean, I guess if you could do it all over again, you'd want to do it all over again, because you are who you are because of it. But what were some critical things that happened that really kind of put you in trajectories that you took?
I think, originally I came to UCI because I thought I would want to do something in the biological sciences, but turns out I'm not smart enough to compete, because as you all know, it is very competitive here in the biological sciences. So when I made the decision to switch over to psychology, which was a much better fit for me, that learning that I gained people, really, that's been probably the key for my whole career, is making sure that I understand people, that I take care of people. The Army is people. So that's probably the best decision that I made while I was here. Yeah.
Well, you've talked about everything what's happened to you in the military. What are some of the highlights of your military career?
I think the travel, being able to go to other countries and...
Tell us a place that you visited that made an impression on you.
Poland. I was in Poland about, when was that? It's about a year ago, I guess.
Really?
No, it was a few months after Russia invaded, so not quite a year ago.
What was that like?
Well, the people of Poland are very concerned.
Of course,
yeah,
it's right there.
They're very concerned. And the Polish army is amazing. They're very, very capable. And the country of Poland is so generous with the people of Ukraine, and they understand, the magnitude of the situation. So that was a real highlight, being able to go there.
That's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
That's
in Japan, yeah.
What'd you like about Japan?
Well, has anybody been to Japan here? Yes,
I have.
Oh my God, it is an amazing country. So the attention to detail in everything they do is phenomenal, and it's beautiful. The food's great. But yeah, working with in Japan, they don't call it, it's not the Army in Japan, it's the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Forces, because constitutionally they're restricted from having an army after World War II. But they are very concerned too about what's going on with North Korea and China. So they live in a very dangerous neighborhood, basically. So yeah, being able to work with the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Forces, very professional and amazing hosts.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Super fun.
What was it like the day you were installed as the commander of the infantry in Los Alamitos?
Yeah, I think everybody has in their hearts the best days of their life. There's days that stand out. The day I married my husband, the day I gave birth to our son, Scott. Those are the top two.
Sure.
Yeah, the division command, that's number 3. It was the most amazing thing. As Libby mentioned, my dad was also in the National Guard and retired as a Major General. He was there that day and so proud of me.
How special?
It was super special, yeah. He's since passed, but it's the fact that to be able to share that day with him.
That's a big deal.
It was really, yeah. He was also a helicopter pilot, but I had never even considered joining the Army until I had this financial problem, and then.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's super funny. He was very surprised. He actually was not even in California at the time. He was at a course. He was in Rhode Island for a year. He was away, and I called him. I'm like, "Guess what, Dad?" And he was like, "What the heck?" So he was very surprised, but proud.
Well, when you're at UCI, did you have any mentors that guided you? And also, on the flip side, you had mentioned that you're now going to be a senior Army mentor.
Yes.
What's that going to be like? I mean, because you're early in the process of that. You're going to go to DC here, you said the next month
week,
or two.
Yeah.
Oh, next week?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so what's that going to be like for you? And how fun?
Yeah, I know, how fun. I didn't have mentors when I was in college. I don't think I understood the importance and the value of it. Only later did I start doing that. The Army is very big on mentorship. And at my first assignment at Fort Lewis, my company commander was a female helicopter pilot.
Wow.
So she was a great role model for me. But then through the remainder of my career, I've been mentored by very generous officers, all male, and it's kind of a funny thing. I don't think I've ever had a conversation where I went up to somebody and said, "Would you be my mentor?" it never really went that way. But there were people that had the job that I aspired to have, and so I would go talk to that person and kind of pick their brain on, well, how did you get there? And they'd say, well, you got to do A, B, and C, the school, and so the mentorship piece is really important. And then you realize as you rise how important it is to pull people up behind you and to coach and encourage and give suggestions. And so I've never had the conversation with a person where I say, do you want me to be your mentor? But there's times when you can see that people are at a decision point. Mm-hmm. And so I've mentored a lot of folks beneath me as well. But now, I'm going to be a part-time mentor to brand new general officers. So I'm excited about that, because it's a weird kind of transition that you go from being a regular officer to being a general officer. You get a lot more, people do things for you, and there's flags and there's special music and stuff, and it's really important to not let it change you. You're not really any more special than you were before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you mentioned there weren't a lot of females there, a lot of males.
Right.
Did you ever feel that there were limits on what you could attain, or the sky was the limit?
I never felt any limits.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, always.
A lot of encouragement along the way?
A lot of encouragement, and there's certain things that you have to do to be competitive for it. Mm-hmm. And so I always made sure that I was qualified, and prepared for the next thing. But I also tell people it's really important to focus on the thing you're doing right now. Be present in the thing you're doing. That is your most important task. Too many people get fixated on the next thing, that they don't do a good job at the thing that they're supposed to be doing now, if that makes sense.
I understand.
Yeah.
So, and just to kind of waylay into that, all these students here right now, what advice would you give them, knowing what you know now, while they're in school?
Yeah, I say...
Life and in school.
Yes. Say yes to things. Even, and especially the things that make you uncomfortable. To challenge yourself, and you never know what doors are going to open when you say yes to something. Well,
like you said, if you wouldn't have done that camp, you would not have been in the military. Just say yes to that.
I just say yes to things. Yeah, and it's always opened new doors for me. I meet new people. I learn what I'm not good at. That happens. Turns out I'm not good at a lot of things, but I say yes to things. And and I also believe approaching everything with a positive outlook helps too.
Very much so.
Yeah, people don't like to work for an angry boss. And so I come to work every day, with joy in my heart, and have fun.
Attitude's everything.
Attitude's everything. Mm-hmm. And when you're like that, people want to work with you. And they want to help you. You attract other positive people, and I have worked for some people that were not that way. It did not inspire loyalty, trust. They didn't get the best product out of me, because they were jerks.
Well, and that's where it goes back to being a good leader.
Being a good leader. And you can learn a lot from bad leaders.
True.
Yeah, learning what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Fortunately, most of mine were very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, like I said, we have all these students here. If they choose to do a path into the military, what would be the smartest way to go about that?
Well, you can try it. There's very short enlistment opportunities
or
now.
The ROTC?
You could do, yeah, you could enlist to be a regular soldier. If you thought, well, I'm not sure if I want to do something like this, you could do what I did, was ROTC, or you could do, like my son, he enlisted for just 2 years. And 2 years actually goes really fast, and he's still in. So you can try it. If you don't like it, then you just don't keep doing it. I think a lot of people are not familiar with the reserve components. They think if I join the Army, I'm going to have to, move away from my family, friends. You don't have to, because there's, like what I've been doing. I've been living in the same house in Sacramento now since 2007, and I was full-time with the National Guard, but most people, we say 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. It's a lot more than that. If you ever watch the news and whatever emergency is happening in California, whether it's mudslides, fires, riots, whatever, all these things that happen in California, if you see somebody in uniform helping people, that's the National Guard in California. So it's a very fulfilling opportunity to help fellow citizens here in California. And so that's one way to try it, and just a little taste of it is getting the reserves in the National Guard. But I'm really proud. Every time there's a wildfire, we have helicopters out there dropping water.
Any certain areas, course of study, or getting a degree after school? You said getting a master's always helps if you want to get into the military too. Yeah,
but you don't have to have a college degree. You don't even have to have a high school degree right now. You can get in with the GED.
Well, pay for it. Do they still have the GI Bill?
And they still have the GI Bill, so they're still, at least half of my original bachelor's was paid for. 3/4 of my master's in psychology was paid for, and all of my master's in strategic studies was paid for.
Wow.
Yeah, the military really values education a lot. So yeah, you don't have to have a college degree, and there's a lot of careers in the military that transfer over to make pretty good money. So things like aircraft repair is good. There's a lot of cyber needs for people with cyber skills, communications, logistics, healthcare.
That's really cool.
Yeah, pretty much any job that's in the civilian world is also in the Army.
We talked about the helicopters, and that was one of your specialties. What got you into flying Black Hawks and Sikorskis?
Yeah, as soon as I got into ROTC, I was then eligible to fly as a passenger on Army helicopters, and my dad was a helicopter instructor pilot in the National Guard, and one day he said, "Hey, do you want to take a helicopter flight?" And I'm like, yeah, So he got me on a helicopter, and we flew up to Big Bear.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, and we landed up there, and we had lunch up there, and came back, and I was like, "God, this is the best thing ever," And from that point on, I was obsessed. And
how long did it take you to become a qualified pilot and all the training and hours and all that?
It took a year. It's actually interesting. If I don't know if anybody's ever taken private pilot lessons or anything, but the actual manipulation of the controls is sort of the least important thing.
Really?
Yeah, it has more to do with, knowing where you are on a map is important. Being aware of the weather, maintaining radio control, and that's the actual flying is, sort of the easy part, but it's super fun. I mean, every time, and I don't fly anymore, but every time you pick that helicopter up to a hover, I was like, it's just, yeah. And if I'm walking around, if I see a helicopter here, I literally will stop, to
look up.
Yes.
I love it.
Because they're just the best. Yeah.
Well, now you're involved here. She's on the board at the UCI Alumni Association, myself included. She actually brought me on board. Where do you see yourself in 10 years, and what would you like to be doing during that 10 years?
Yeah.
Now that you're semi-retired.
I know. I'm mostly retired, and I'm still trying to sort out how much, like the balance again, balancing being busy with just doing fun stuff. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but definitely travel. I was in Iceland in October. I highly recommend Iceland, and Ireland. We're going to Ireland this coming October. So just travel and food.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but you know, hopefully make a difference here on the board.
And you're doing the mentoring thing with the Army. Do you see that kind of growing, or would you like to do mentoring elsewhere besides the Army, or
Yeah,
what's that?
I don't know.
Any aspirations there?
I think my husband wants me to be more busy because he wants me out of the house a little bit. So yeah, I know. I thought maybe like life coach or something like that, maybe in the future, because I think my degree and experience, I could, you know, I could do mentoring in that way. I think I do need to be probably busier, but.
Are you active at all in sports or anything?
I play tennis, but I'm not, you know, not in your league at all.
Good for you.
Yeah, and yeah, walk.
And you're socializing more with your girlfriends. We actually were talking about gals that we grew up with. She's going to spend the weekend with them, and that's nice to have that back in your
we're
schedule
planning
these days now too.
Planning our trip to Ireland.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, what's it like when you come to campus? What memories come back to you when you step on campus? When you're here, kind of walking around? It's changed so much.
It's changed so much, yeah, because it was a long time ago. I am so impressed with all of the additional buildings, the amenities that you guys have, which is way better than it was when we were here.
Big time.
Big time better. But I do kind of miss the smallness of the campus.
It was intimate.
It was very intimate, and
the student center was just really small. Remember that? Pac-Man and all that.
Yeah. Now there's little robot things roaming around and
the little pizza carrier things.
Yes, yeah. I miss because it was just always really calming. You come out of class just freaked out about something and just walk through the park and yeah.
Do you have any significant memories here when you were here?
I had.
Stands
this
out?
is like nightmare stuff. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm a very punctual person. And I think it's still probably this way. Final exams are not always at the same time of day as the class. And so I showed up probably 40 minutes early for biology final. And I'm seeing people come out that they're coming out of the building that I know are in my class. And it occurs to me that I must have the time wrong.
Oh, shoot.
So instead of being 40 minutes early, I was an hour and 40 minutes late.
Ay.
And so, like, I'm having a heart attack. Like, this is nightmare stuff, right? I get in there and I explain to the professor, like, you know, I'm dumb, I'm sorry, I'm late. And he's like, well, you can go ahead and take the test, but you don't get any extra time. So I was, you know. I mean, I passed the class, but obviously, you know, not my best work. So that, yeah. So I will never forget that. But most of my other classes were not. Were not.
Well, it's amazing when we went here, the population was so much smaller than it is now, and it's grown to international levels. It's pretty amazing how much it's grown since we've been here.
Yeah, the reputation of the school is amazing.
It's top notch.
Yeah.
Top notch.
You all made a really good choice to come here.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
You will get a great education, and yeah, what a quality school this is.
We're very fortunate.
If there are any questions, first let's give a round of applause to our guests.